Good morning. Good afternoon. Fine internet people. Welcome to the ASTROLABE brought to you by King Pilled. This is it was originally supposed to be a morning variety show, but it keeps getting later and later in the day. For those of you who missed yesterday morning, I was out getting a root canal, but I did manage to get a stream in yesterday afternoon. So make sure you don't miss that. And then this one here is this afternoon. Tomorrow's will definitely not be in the afternoon because by about this time tomorrow, I will be on the road driving up to Oklahoma City. Yeah, definitely will be a morning show tomorrow. But I've already got the stories lined up, or most of the stories lined up for that one. So should be pretty good to get through. Do me a favor on your way in, hit the like button. What's up, chat? I see you guys in here jamming away. Philandes, Real Hoopties of Genesee County. Still, one of the best names. One of the best names I've seen from you guys. It's no Glonk Respecter. I got to say that Glonk Respecter just takes the cake for all of history. John, see you in the camp. See you in the camp. I see is a member of the King Pilled. Which, if you'd like to support this show, that I get cranked out for you guys daily. If you'd like to support it, you can become a channel member, only $5 a month, and you too can post with a green name. We might have some more channel member options coming here soon because I'm gonna start doing some streams, some channel member only streams on some longer form stuff. Yeah, Kate says, "Where's Glonk? Where is Glonk? I haven't seen him in a while. I hope he's doing okay. Might have to hit him up and say, hey Glonk, I haven't seen you in the chat." This is the way we internet people keep in touch with each other these days. We keep track of which live chats we show up in together. So yeah, you can become a channel member, $5 a month. You can send a super chat, or the best way to support the show is become a member of the King Pilled super secret, super private community on Discord, King Pilled Discord. You can go to up, yeah, we'd love to have you there. A little bit of news that dropped here just before, it dropped a little earlier this morning, but I just saw it here just a little bit before I went live. So I wasn't planning on touching on this, but since I saw it, let's talk about it. Nick Sortor, who is a on scene covering stories MSM won't, seen on Tucker Carlson tonight, Fox News, Newsmax, Timcast, etc. Interesting little connection to Tucker there. We'll talk about Tucker here in a second. He says, just in, the Trump campaign has brought back Corey Lewandowski, Trump's 2016 campaign manager. This is huge news. Corey was a key reason Trump trounced Hillary in 2016 and doesn't put up with Rhino BS. His primary strategy, let Trump be Trump. I'm pumped for this. Let's fucking go. So Corey Lewandowski, you might know about him because of the dust up, and I don't remember all of the details on this now. It's just absolute ancient history. I was living in Washington State when that happened because I remember where I was walking when I was listening to podcasts talking about it. But he and Ben Shapiro had a dust up over some chick, and I can't remember the details. It was he like moved her out of the way or bumped into her or put his hands on her in some sort of rough manner. And this was at the peak of the SJW time. And so then I don't remember if she actually filed charges for sexual assault or she's like, it was very obviously a massive trumped up thing that had no legitimacy to it, but it did manage to get Lewandowski cleared out of the Trump orbit for a period of time there, which in hindsight, I didn't really think about this then. But in hindsight, this should have been a clear indicator that he is one of our guys, or at least he's much more that than someone else there, or than other options there. There was a reason why he needed to be taken out, which points to his effectiveness. So this is a good thing. Now, there are certain people who are trying to take credit for this, and I think they're really jumping the gun on that one. In particular, because let me find this video here. I had it pulled up a second ago. Here it is. I showed you guys this video a week ago maybe, and there was something that I noticed in there that I don't think I pointed out at the time. But let's watch this again. This is This is the series or the documentary that Tucker Carlson's been putting together as he and his team have been traveling around with the Trump campaign. They had a guy who was filming on site when the attempted assassination happened, and so they got some behind the scenes footage for that. They're producing this, releasing this on the Tucker Carlson network, so you can join at tuckercarlson.com. I'm going to be doing that so I can watch it. But as we're watching this little video here, notice who you see a couple of times.
So we're standing exactly in the path where the president will walk out to the crowd about an hour from now, and there's a malfunction with the flag.
Be careful!
The hood's rocking with Trump. Trump's definitely got the black vote back.
Making America great again.
Donald Trump is the boss. And when you think you're in control, Donald Trump does something that says you're not in control.
You think Biden could do this? I don't think so. What is the...
Donald Trump is the boss. And when you think you're in control...
Sorry, I meant to pause it there, and I got distracted reading the comments. Look at that.
Donald Trump does something that says you're not in control.
You think Biden could do this? I don't think so.
What is the campaign specifically doing differently now?
If there's one word to describe it, it's just execution.
Biden's just taken...
Whoop. Who's that? I don't know for sure if that's him. Now I'm looking at it here. It may not be him.
Biden's just taken the stage of the debate.
The standard is not, are you able to stand up for 90 minutes?
I can't even understand him right now.
Trump is like riding a great racehorse, right? You put the blinders on, you guide him into the corners, and you let him run.
I'm pretty sure that was his voice again.
Look at how many people are showing up for a rally. Everyone, please, just make sure you're ready. 30 seconds. Let's go, America!
Yep, there he is. So this had to have been filmed, I don't know, at least 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago. Was my internet going down? What's going on? Why is it not playing? This is not like my internet here. I've got
Standard is not.
There we go.
30 seconds. Let's go, America!
Yep, there he is.
The president's been shot. I repeat, the president's been shot.
Really looking forward to watching that whole thing. But the big takeaway here is that Corey Lewandowski has been with and around the Trump campaign for a while now. So I don't know exactly what this announcement entails, if it is an actual formal. I mean, think about on the ground, what happens here? You know, like, is there paperwork that he signed? Is he being officially hired? You know, where now he's going to be paid. And so he's going to continue having the same conversations, but he's just going to do it in a paid capacity. Or does this give him access to conversations that he wasn't previously? Maybe he's just kind of hanging around their orbit, and this gives him access to conversations that he wouldn't have been allowed into before. In either case, obviously, even being allowed in the orbit and being included in this documentary from Tucker, who's very plugged in with the Trump campaign, is a strong indicator that Corey Lewandowski has been with the Trump campaign for a while now, and for whatever reason, they feel the need to make it known publicly. So it'll be interesting to watch what happens with him over the next few months. See what sort of a dent he can make. All right, my wife knows exactly what I'm like. Every one of you guys out there that's married, your wife pings you with shorts. She watches shorts and she sends them to you. This is her expression of her love. And my wife is the same. She sends me shorts. And since I started doing the ASTROLABE, she occasionally sends me stuff and says, for the show. And this was one of the first ones the other day she sent me for the show. She knows exactly what I appreciate. I appreciate some good quality science. Science has been perverted of late to where people almost don't even want to hear it. Don't even want to hear the word science. They cringe when they hear science. But we need to take back science, and we're going to do it like this.
You're going to want to fill a bathtub and get a fart receptacle. You're going to want to get your cup, and you're going to want to fill it up with water. Then, when you invert it, you will notice that it is filled with water all the way in the jar. Now, when you fart towards the surface, the air will travel up and end up.
It's really official science, you see, because he's got the title of his experiment over here, and he's actually created a little graphic to indicate what he's expecting to happen.
In the top of the jar here. Let's try it out. As you can see, the top of this jar has a little bit of air in it, but it's not air. Now, submerge the cup again and screw the lid on. Once you take it out of the water, you'll notice there's a little bubble in there. You know what that is. The final step is to bring this to a friend and have them sniff it. Today I'm going to teach you...
Hypothesis confirmed. We're doing science. Here's another one that hit very close to home. I think I discovered this one myself. I can't remember. If she sent it to me, then I'm sorry. I give you credit, Mama. You're the one who sent it to me. But I think I found it. This is literally me. I know a lot of people often say literally me. No, this is literally me.
On a different story, but this time I'm mistaken.
Forehand and you are hard worth breaking, and I've been wrong, I've been down, been to the
story. I was waiting on a different story.
The one of my favorite memes on the internet is the revival of Creed and Nickelback. It's such a fascinating phenomenon because somehow they were simultaneously incredibly popular, and it was also really like déclassé to be a fan of them and to listen to them, to be caught listening to them. No one would admit it. So, but it's funny in hindsight seeing the fact that this has become a thing, the fact that this has become a meme, and that people, it starts off as kind of a meme where people are performatively enjoying it, but people genuinely enjoy it because they genuinely enjoy it, which says something about the anti-hype back then. If anything, I think what this is the people who genuinely enjoyed this back in the day were largely guys and just like white dudes who just want to have a good time and like fuck shit up. And then there was the theater kids, the snobby, bougie, popular kids at school that were, bookish and teacher kiss asses and everything. They were like, ew. You listen to Creed, you listen to Nickelback. Ugh, you're just so gross. Like OMG. And now is our revenge. Now we get them back. Sort of in a similar vein, this, I wish I could show this to you without you seeing the names of the people on it and have you guess who it is. I don't think I can. I can't share the tab without sharing it's Instagram. So if I scroll away, then it's, yeah. It would be fun to have you try to guess who this is because I don't think anybody would ever guess it, but it kind of works. It sounds pretty good. Whoops. Maybe I should actually share the screen first. Okay, unmute, share the tab. Instagram's so terrible.
It's not like me to worry, but when I see you fading in the dark, I'll leave a light on for you. Through the long nights, I will be right there for you. If you drift too far, I'll leave a light on for you.
Papa Roach and Carrie Underwood. My man's got pipes. Their voices really complement each other really well too. It's I don't really have a grasp for how other people are going to appreciate music because I am like the least I don't know, picky about music of any person you've ever met. Literally every single genre appeals to me. I enjoy all of it. I don't care how weird or goofy or I don't know, like opera, everything. I'll listen to any of it, and I enjoy it. So apparently Kate likes it. She says, "Get this song in my library now." It's called "Leave a Light On" by Papa Roach and Carrie Underwood. And if you go to at least his Instagram, there. Buck Johnson says that's the first time I've ever heard either of them. Buck, please, sir. I know that you're a joker. I know you like to tell jokes, and I really need to know right now that that's a joke. I really need to know that this was not the first time that you've ever heard Papa Roach or Carrie Underwood. It was the first time you ever heard them together. It should be the first time you've ever heard them together, because I haven't seen anybody talking about this apart from when I scrolled past this on Instagram. He's being for real. You've never heard Carrie Underwood? I mean, I can understand maybe never hearing Papa Roach. I'm sure you've probably heard Papa Roach and you just don't know it. Cut My Life into Pieces. This Is My Last Resort. Suffocated. No Breathing. Don't Give a Fuck If I Cut My Arm Bleeding. I think if I'm remembering it. Oh my God. The first time he's ever heard of him. Well, I'm glad I was able to introduce you to Papa Roach and Carrie Underwood. That's great. Okay. Oh man. Okay. Hold on. I'm sure that this is going to be this is going to be demonetized anyways. So multiple people are saying that they haven't. 1.9 million views 13 days ago on that one I just played you. In fact, that's the first thing that comes up. Okay, here we go. This is Papa Roach. All you need to hear is like the first 3 seconds. And if you've heard the song, you've heard it. And if you haven't, then you haven't.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my arm bleeding.
So that's Papa Roach. And then I want to see what the first song is that comes up. Okay, yeah, the one I was expecting. So this is Carrie Underwood. Oh, Buck, you definitely know who Carrie Underwood is because she's the one who does the song for, is it Sunday Night Football? Yeah, Sunday Night Football. Yeah. That just occurred to me. You definitely know who Carrie Underwood is. Okay, I did not expect to go off down this big rabbit hole, but a couple things I want to share with you guys that you should go watch in your own time, and I may even have to do a stream of one of these conversations because of the sheer mind bombs that drop from it. Both of them with Balaji Srinivasan. One of them is shorter. It's him talking to Vivek. They chop it up on the FDA. And this was dropped yesterday. It's only an hour long. And there's a really funny dynamic between the two of them. They're very collegial, but it seems like there's a kind of a rivalry between them. They get a little testy. Like it's good natured, but they're kind of jostling a little bit. And it seems very much like Balaji's like, whatever. I'm here to sit and talk. I want to share my charts. I've got all my sources I want to show you, and I just want to talk about the stuff. And yeah, you got your thing, and I got my thing, and we're different, and that's cool. And Vivek is kind of like, sort of like he's like, yeah, we're a little different. You're that way. You think that way, and I'm, I understand it. I can appreciate it. I think I like the things you're saying. Well, then I think this way. So there's kind of a funny social dynamic between them throughout it, which I would say is probably for obvious reasons. They're very, very similar across a lot of domains, and then they happen to have some key differences where one of them is One of them is the insider, one of them is the outsider. But this conversation is very, very good, and they need to do more. Extremely entertaining, very informative. They both have very similar ways of looking at the world, and they've got a lot of crossover in their career experience. And so they speak about these subjects well at the higher levels. They can speak and kind of do inside baseball, but then they also are naturally very gifted populist communicators as well. So they're able to give the complicated explanation and then the simplified explanation and kind of ping pong back and forth between them. So to me, listening to these kind of conversations is like crack. So they cover E-Room's law, which is Moore's law backwards, MDMA and the FDA, island hopping campaign versus regulatory state, Banting and Best versus FDA, 5 current exits from FDA, and then dismantle, reform, or escape. So the intent for them was to talk. Originally, when they went into the conversation, they were expecting to talk more high level about dismantling regulatory bureaucracies and current geopolitics and that sort of thing. And then they wound up connecting on this FDA thing and really going down a rabbit hole. So they spent most of the conversation talking about FDA, and then they're going to plan future conversations. Balaji was ready to go for another couple hours, and Vivek was the one who had to run. But if you want to get Balaji going for a couple hours, then here's another one. I started listening to this one just kind of as background, sort of, because I was expecting it was going to be hearing a lot of the same stuff, and I had to put down what I was doing and just sat and listened to the whole thing. Very, very good. So the title of it is "What is Happening in America: Current Political Situation Explained by Balaji Srinivasan." This is very interesting channel.
A lot of people.
So this is the host.
Say, 8 times Olympia, but now he's dealing with injuries. What's your response to those people?
So he's talking to Ronnie Coleman. His stuff is really well produced, high production value. He talks to like Bollywood people. He talks to Silicon Valley people. It's very interesting. And his channel is Beer Biceps. This is the first time I've ever heard of him. But he's got almost 8 million subscribers. So I think maybe he's like one of the big YouTubers in India, perhaps. I'm not sure. It was kind of surreal to watch this conversation because he has like a pretty sophisticated geopolitical understanding, but very little understanding of American politics. And it's kind of a fascinating dynamic to watch. They're in India, so he's very well acquainted with Indian politics and with geopolitical stuff because India, you got India and you got Iran and you got China and you got Russia, and so they're very plugged into that whole thing. But he's got an extremely surface level understanding of American politics and knows it too. He's kind of like, I like some of the memes and stuff come out, but Trump is the like build the wall guy, and so what's red and blue? Like, what are these things? What does blue mean? How are those people? Like, what's their background? He doesn't know anything about it. And he couldn't have picked a better person to walk him through the distinctions between the different parties and their different, the way they split up into various factions and the things that are motivating and driving them and the high level patterns. Balaji is fantastic for all of that stuff. So it's kind of like, it's getting a guy who's one of the best experts on across the board, the geopolitical situation right now, total systems thinker, having him explain American politics, do like an Explain Like I'm 5 on American politics. And so he explains, but he doesn't explain like I'm 5. He explains it at a pretty high level because he's got a very nuanced understanding of it. But this conversation was absolutely brilliant. The way Balaji pulls in all these different threads that paints a really clear picture of what the current state is, what the current trajectory is, what the alternative trajectories are, and what the different parties and where they came from, how they came to be. Very, very good conversation. This is one that it's a 2 hour and 13-minute conversation. So if I was to do a live watch on it, it's probably going to be 3.5 or 4 hours, but I might have to do that because it's that good. Anyways, strongly recommend that. Go check it out. Let's move on through some of the stories we've got here today. So we've got some stuff on Mark Cuban, JD Vance, some stuff on abortion, some stuff on AI. Interesting news out of Sweden. RAG Nationalist highlighted this. Sweden has announced plans for a voluntary remigration scheme for migrants. That'll be interesting to look at. And then I had some very good tweets yesterday that I'm very proud of that I want to share with you guys. And then they didn't get a lot of traction, but I was very proud of them. And some talk about JD Vance, some talk about the PayPal mafia, et cetera, et cetera. But first thing here, this video has been going around for a little while, and so it's funny now to see how what's his name, Joe Rogan, is downstream from Twitter, because I saw this video's trended a couple times on Twitter over the last month or two. Joe Rogan plays shocking old footage of Donald Trump on The View. You won't believe how well they treated him. Vigilant Fox is good for this kind of viral content. Joe Rogan, watch this. This is literally bonkers. Watch this. Just watch this. This is nuts. We're in an alternative universe, okay? Because this is not that long ago. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. And this is not that long ago. But it's jarring to see how far we've come in such a short period of time.
Hey, everybody used to like Trump. Like the show. You ever seen like videos of Trump on The View with Barbara Walters back when they liked him? You ever seen that?
Yes, but I can't remember what you're referring to.
You should see it because it's bonkers. This is it. Watch this. This is bonkers. Go full screen. This is literally bonkers.
Mogul and a television star. But does he really want to add President of the United States to his resume? A lot of people would like him to. Please, let's find out, and please welcome my friend, Donald Trump.
My friend.
My friend. Watch this. Just watch this. This is nuts. We're in an alternative universe. Okay? Because this is not that long ago.
Go standing O.
Bro, watch this. Just watch how this goes. Watch this. So she's a Republican. That's easy.
Yep.
But everybody else.
Joy can't wait to get a hug in.
Yeah, everyone's hugging. Look at this. Look at this. Kisses, hugs, kisses to Whoopi. Everybody hugs and kisses. Even Joy Behar hugs and kisses.
Even Joy Behar hugs and kisses.
See? Now watch this.
So I'm going to take you at your word that you have not decided yet when you're going to run, but you're thinking about it, and you've expressed some of your views, which are controversial and in many ways, but not to her. Well, not to her. Okay, you're a Republican, so, but let's say that you do decide in the spring, right? And your ideas resonate so much. On the other hand, we saw Newt Gingrich apologizing for his marriages and divorces. You've had 3 marriages, 2 sort of uncomfortable divorces. Do you think that
not really. They were very comfortable.
Well, we won't read you all that. Do you think
getting laughs right away?
That would bother anybody?
I think the country is doing so badly, they want somebody that's going to help it. I think the country is never been in a position like it is right now. It's being ripped off by every nation, every intelligent nation in the world, whether it's China. They're taking our jobs, they're making all our product, and then they loan us back the money, we pay them interest.
That is
Whether
crazy.
it's OPEC.
That's crazy.
OPEC, which is OPEC is a field day right now. How about the Arab League? They say, we want you to go in and attack Libya. These are the wealthiest countries in the world. Why aren't they paying us?
Okay,
Why
so
aren't
then they
they-
change their minds also. But you didn't answer my question.
No, I did answer your question. I really think
it won't
people,
matter.
I think maybe 10 years ago it would have mattered, 5 years ago. The fact is, I think people want somebody now that's going to protect them and protect this country, because we're not going to be a great country for long if we keep going the way we're going right now.
The audience cheers.
Yeah.
When we have France leading the charge, okay, France, this is our new leader. By the way, they led for about 2 hours. After that, nobody's seen them. I don't know if you know that. or not.
Geographically, so they should. Let me just ask a follow-up question to that.
Lead is the point.
Let me just ask a follow-up question to that. Let's say you run. You've given a lot of thought for this. Who would you like as your vice president? Possibly Sarah Palin?
Well, I think it's far too early even to discuss that. I'm going to make a decision sometime prior to June. I'm thinking about it very strongly. I think I'd do a really good job. I think I'd protect this country like it's not being protected. You know, it's funny. So many of the things I say, now politicians are saying, hey, that's right. Why don't we...
Isn't it wild seeing how he's saying the exact same things? He's been completely consistent. This is 10 years ago. He's saying all of the exact same things. This is what, when this is on The View, this is what Trump was running into. When he decided to run for president, this was his anticipated reception. This is how he expected it to go. He was just going to be a presidential candidate, and he had a real set of policies he wanted to run on, and you know, he had a fairly radical vision, and it was anti-establishment, but it wasn't like, I'm going to come in here and root you guys out and tear you limb from limb. Because he expected we're going to come in and we live in a society, I'll present my case, and if the Americans vote for me, then we'll come in and we're going to slash some stuff. I'm the you're fired guy, so you're coming, you're fired. There you go. All right, we're going to cut through some red tape and fix our relationship to China. Like, this is what he was coming into. There's no way that he would have ever anticipated just what he was actually getting himself into. It's kind of fascinating. This goes to that conversation with Balaji, where he talks about the dynamic of going from the press, and he shows a bunch of graphs of like revenue for, and he's comparing New York Times to like Facebook, and the way that the New York Times was super well established, and then the rise of tech and the war between the journalists and tech and the big tech companies, and the way sentiment turned against Facebook all of a sudden, and how this corresponded with Obama and him running in 2012 on all the race shit, and that being right at the point where everything spiked. So you have Obama and the New York Times against the tech people. But then by the time Trump rolled around, they actually ended up kind of like joining forces. And then there was the economic incentives for this because of the rise of things like Twitter and social media having a massive impact on the big newspapers, the digital overtaking the physical, and he's got a lot of really interesting stuff on this. I think maybe I might just do that stream this evening. I wonder if I can fit that in this evening. I think I'm going to try to do that stream this evening, and we'll just watch through as much of it as I can. I'm wondering if it's going to let me do it on YouTube. I'll give it a shot. We'll see if we can do it, and I'll see if I can do it this afternoon. But if that's something you guys would enjoy, let me know. If you would actually show up and watch something like that. I know there's a lot of they touch on the Indian dynamic and the role that India is going to play, and India's relationship to China. This is two guys who are very intimately acquainted with the Indian perspective. And I've listened to this for a while. I've listened to this perspective for a while, and I can tell that the American perspective does not understand the Indian perspective in as well as the Indian perspective understands the American perspective. And whenever I notice something like that, I'm always like, okay, I want to pay attention to what's happening here to know what I might be missing. So they touch on that as well. Anyways, I'll see if I can get that stream in this afternoon because it's really, really good. We'll keep watching this.
Like, why aren't they paying us? If you look at North Korea, South Korea, we're protecting South Korea. They're making a fortune. Let's call it hundreds of billions of dollars of profit on us. We have 25,000 soldiers over there protecting them. They don't pay us. Why are they paying us?
You'd be treating this like a business.
No, a business with heart.
Okay.
Believe me, there's a lot of heart. It's a business, but it's also a business with heart. We will destroy this country. It won't be a war. If the economics of this country keep going the way they're going, we're not going to have a country.
You're kind of a social liberal, Donald. You know, you're a social liberal. Could you actually get the base to vote for you in the primary?
Well, every poll is saying that I'm the one that does the best. They're doing polls.
They actually have you a higher approval rating than Mitt Romney, Tim Pawlenty, John Boehner.
So let's just pause and think. Just
he's very poised. He's listening.
Just
he's
grasp
like,
the 180.
Yeah.
That the media has taken on him since he decided to be president.
Yeah.
When you see the machine go after a guy, we've never seen the machine go after someone as bold-faced. You know, the prosecutions, the Russiagate stuff on television every night, all of it. And then to see just a few years ago, they loved him.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting clip. It's similar to the Colbert one that I played the other day. And then Javier Oliva in here said, I remember hearing about this. He said, there's an award ceremony for Donald Trump hosted by Jesse Jackson for Trump's work helping black workers in New York City. Like this was the Donald Trump before. The degree of the derangement and how quickly it happened is so fascinating. And I keep coming back to it. Balaji's breakdown of it is just so good. Yeah, social liberal then, fascist dictator now. And imagine... these people are like fictional characters to us, you know, they're just on the screen and they do their thing and they talk and we see video clips of them go around. But he actually knew these people. He was like friends with them. He's there, they're like kissing each other and he sits down and he's talking with them. And they completely 180'd on someone they knew personally, who they had a personal relationship with. The idea that Trump would be the same person that he was 10 years ago is just inane. He's been radicalized big time. How wouldn't you be? That's obvious in his rhetoric and the way he talks about this and everything that he's gone through. So he signed up for like, all right, our country's in trouble and I'm going to step to I'll be the one who steps up and takes the lead and fixes it all. And steadily the regime just piled more and more and more and more and more on him. And every single time he continued to step up to the plate over and over and over and over again. To the point where they literally took a shot at him to where a month from now, he's going to find out whether he's going to be sentenced to prison. Jacob Stevens in the chat. What's up, buddy? So speaking of which, what happens on September 13th for Trump sentencing? Genuinely no idea. He says, everyone's saying 1 year prison and that Rikers is getting prepped for it now. Genuinely no idea. However, I can make a strong case for why they would or wouldn't. Both would be completely believable to me. And we're in the end game now. But if he does get a prison sentence, that's the accelerationist option. That is the serious radicalization option. After all of this, if they actually hand down a prison sentence, my guess is what he's probably going to get is he's going to get like some sort of a combination of it. There's going to be like a prison sentence, but it's going to be waived or deferred, or so he's going to get something that's effectively a slap on the wrist, but sounds really bad. And so then they're going to be able to run with it with the negative press without ever actually having to really go after him and really dig their heels in on something, really plant their flag on something. But at this point, there isn't a lot of coherence among the different regime factions. They're all at each other's throats for one thing or another. So they're able to sort of still kind of put aside their differences on individual issues and maintain a univocal voice. But on every issue, there's some aspect of the regime coalition that's dropped off and is no longer maintaining the full front. Which means on net, all of the different regime propositions and all their different forays are being compromised. Their willpower is being broken. So eventually there's going to be some regime faction that decides we're going to take a bold stand here, and they're going to really go out on a limb and try to take such an extreme position that they force the rest of the regime to align with them, even when they don't want to. And that'll be a big line of demarcation because there's no predicting exactly how it's going to go until it happens. Because it's going to be up to each individual and collective representative of this regime coalition and what they decide to do in that moment, under pressure, under the gun. Do they sack up and stay the course, or do they just bow out? Nope, this is too much. The pressure's gotten too high, and I'm not ready I can't follow you down that path. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch. And it genuinely still, like, I don't think that the future is decided. I don't think we have a predetermined outcome. We're in a very high variance time where single individual events can have a massive disproportionate impact one way or the other. And in some cases, maybe both ways at the same time. Buck Johnson says the Vance option might be his best insurance against jail time. And that's a really good point. Because putting him in jail is not going to diminish his popularity. It's not going to make him easier to run against. It's just going to it's going to add to his mythology. And I think that a lot of people who were formerly in thrall or caught in the thrall of following kind of the NPC hate mob, they're even starting to get rattled out of this. This is where, even though people aren't still talking about the assassination, even though everything's trying to be memory hold, it's had an effect already. There's a lot of people who got snapped out of it at that moment. A significant chunk of the population was like, whoa, okay, hold on. And that you can't like unfeel that. You can't unradicalize from that point. It may not be having the effect of snapping more people out now, but it already snapped a lot of people out. With each event like this, more people just decide, even if they don't publicly talk about it, even if they don't start making the decisions, they hit that point, that like tripwire in their mind that just is like, okay, I can no longer just subconsciously follow whatever the regime does. I need to start thinking for myself, making the decision myself before I just instinctively respond. And once you get that little chink in the armor, as it's happened with many of us, virtually all of us experience this at some point, where we just sort of subconsciously aligned with whatever the narrative trademark is. And then something happened that broke us out of that, and we started going, hold on. You just kind of hesitate when you see a story, and you're like, is that true? Is the way it's being framed true? Or is there an alternative explanation? You start looking for those alternative explanations. Yes, the chink in the armor. The vibe shift. We can even say chink now. Speaking of vibe shift, professional podcasting here. Look at this. It's funny that this sort of thing actually is newsworthy, but Dr. Ben Braddock on Twitter at Graduated Ben, he said the return of the pistol emoji is the real vibe shift. Now, this is something that's, from what I could tell, this is just on X. On the, I saw people, there was a screenshot. Yeah, Android pleb still down bad. So the Android can't see it. I went and looked on my phone, on my iPhone, and this is what it looks like. It looks exactly like this on the iPhone. However, if I type the gun emoji on the iPhone, then it looks like the little green squirt gun. Let's try this. Hello. Oh, I need to zoom out. Hold on. We're going to see what it does here in Chrome. Yep, there you go. So, that's a very deliberate decision to make. Why would that decision be made? You think? Can you imagine how that conversation would go? And who would decide that that this is the direction we need to go? It's a very small thing that seems kind of silly, but it is signifies a lot. Speaking of the pew-pews, if you guys aren't listening to and following Sean Ryan, you're not doing life right. He's had some amazing conversations recently. And check out this absolute hand cannon. Why is there no audio? Oh, there is. Woo! Gets you right in the tingly bits. The 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, coined the most powerful handgun in the world. I want. Speaking of guns, got a long thread or a long tweet here to read you guys from Devin Erickson, the guy who had the rebranding of nuclear thing from yesterday. First of all, this is what he's responding to. Euthanasia. When can I search faggot and retard and tenor gifs? That's when we're gonna know that we're all the way back. Is when we can search for faggot and retard in the gifs and actually get results. And I don't think we're that far away from that, honestly. It could happen at any point. So Jordan Peterson says the right to freedom of speech is central because it's the right by which you defend all the other rights. And Naval Ravikant says the right to bear arms. As a correction. And Devin Erickson says, if you don't own a rifle, your opinion is mostly irrelevant. Everything humans do to interact and work together is a proxy for force. Force is base level communication because it requires no common language or concepts and it definitively settles every dispute. Problem with it is it's risky, expensive, and mostly not very enjoyable. So we developed proxies for it. First language, then persuasion, deception, negotiation, money, blackmail, fake news, advertising, psychology, etc., etc. It's all a proxy for the underlying asset, force. So if you have no weapon, then your opinion is only relevant when it influences those who do, whether directly or through second and higher order effects. This places you at a considerable disadvantage, not only because those who can wield force directly can cut through the abstractions and wield that force directly, but also because the threat, stated or implied, of doing so carries weight and can change how others wield those higher level abstractions. This is why Jordan Peterson is wrong. Free speech, when available, can be used to defend many things, but when it is under threat, it cannot be used to defend itself. The right to bear arms, however, can be used to defend the right to bear arms. This is self-reference is a very powerful thing. And that is the difference. If you need a further example, look at what is happening in Britain. The masters do not want their slaves expressing certain opinions, and they are imprisoning them for doing so. Their real plan of attack, of course, has little to do with the people being imprisoned. They only have the resources to do that to a tiny fraction of the population. The real plan is heads on spikes. It's using the fear of being one of those people to shut everyone up, everyone but them. But ask yourself, if you were British or French or Canadian or Australian, or perhaps you actually are, instead of having the outrageous good fortune to be American, what the hell would you do? How would you use the right of free speech to defend the right of free speech? If you say this is wrong, they'll find an excuse to call it hate speech and lock you up. And you consented to this, you morons. A few crazies shot a vanishingly small percentage of kids, and instead of locking up the crazies like any sensible population, you let them take away your only capacity to resist them. You cheered for it, you begged for it, you brag about it. You try to snap back at us with it, saying that at least 0.1% of your school children in the ghetto aren't being shot by other feral teens in the ghetto, as third world barbarians hack your little girls to death with machetes and rape your teenage daughters, and your own government won't lift a finger to stop it because they hate you and they want it to happen. You don't want to admit that the primary civil right, the right on which all the others is based, is the right to be armed. Because if you did, you would have to face three horrifying truths. One, you've been wrong all this time, and the very thing you were smuggest about was your biggest mistake. Two, you are in a shit situation because you now have to figure out how to bring down a government that hates you, can use force on you anytime they want, and you can't stop them. And three, America, Switzerland, and the Czech Republic are the only free countries on earth. Everywhere else is a police state. Americans have always known that ultimately, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no one is coming to save you. You must possess the means to save yourself, or at least to fight back, to make yourself expensive and dangerous to kill so you can save the next guy. This is the reason, the real reason, why Americans love guns. We let you pretend it was because we were fat, stupid, belligerent rednecks who like power fantasies, because that lie seemed to make you happy. And it's not nice to take away the comforting delusions of toddlers and crazy people. But now that delusion is hurting you, and contemptuous as you have been of us, you are fellow human beings, fellow civilized human beings, and we don't want to see you die, so we have to tell you the truth. We love guns because they're not only the tool of liberty, they are the symbol of our value, not as tools or slaves of regime, but as independent, free human beings of inherent worth. In America, when I walk past a police officer on the street, he has a badge and a gun. But I have a gun too, right there under my shirt. And mine works just like his. And that changes everything, because now I am not the only one dependent on the rule of law. He is dependent upon the rule of law too. Because if the rule of law is the only thing that prevents him from killing me under color of authority, then the rule of law is the only thing that prevents me from killing him in the act of resistance. The deterrents exist on both sides, and we all have to play nice. And mostly we do, because those deterrents make sure we really, really want to. They're not playing nice anymore on your side of things in the big blue wobbly thing. They have guns. All you have is a mouth and a keyboard. How's that working out for you? An armed society is a polite society. That's not just a saying, and that's not just fiction. And Terry Pratchett was dead wrong. It doesn't just last until, quote, some twerp drinks out of the wrong mug or picks up someone else's change by mistake, and 5 minutes later you're picking noses out of the beer nuts, end quote. Only a person from a disarmed society who has never lived in an armed one could have been so profoundly, pig-headedly, disastrously delusional. If you haven't trained with guns, owned guns, carried guns, you have no idea what they're like or what you would do if you had one, or what everyone would do in a bar where everyone had one. Because the answer, the real answer to what everyone does in a pub where everyone goes armed is not get their goohulug heads kicked in by the police for speaking out against their masters. Really enjoy this guy's writing style, and really enjoyed the thread. As a good friend of the show, Kyle Carroll, says, might makes rights. All right, so now I need to share with you guys some great tweets of mine that I'm very proud of. So yesterday, Zero Hedge tweeted, World Health Organization declares monkeypox international emergency. They can't even come up with a new script. And my take on this is a white pill based WHO. I too believe that gay piss orgies and their consequences constitute an international emergency and immediate authoritarian crackdown is required. And relatedly, we were talking about science earlier, and I did some science. I said, after a lot of intense study and research, I've concluded that the best way to prevent yourself from getting monkeypox is to avoid attending gay piss orgies. And I didn't just come up with this myself. I actually engaged in peer review. This is how science is done, after all. I had a thesis, and I asked some peers if they agreed with that thesis, and they did. So this is not just some random thesis that I pull out of my ass. This is a peer-reviewed scientific paper. It's short, but it's because I didn't need to make it longer. It's straight to the punch. And for those of you who would like to participate in this kind of science, this is a native ad for the King-Pilled community. If you would like to support and participate in groundbreaking science like this, join the private King-Pilled community. The link is in the bio, but since you're not on Twitter as you're listening to this, presumably you could just go to kingpilled.com. Okay. I've got another couple brilliant, just legendary tweets of mine coming up shortly. But first of all, I thought this was a really interesting take on the AI deal here. Mark Metz says this Devin guy went on the Break the Rules podcast and was supposed to debate Oren, but he ended up mostly siding with Oren against that insufferable BTR host. Oh, that's great. That makes me like him even better. Politically Catholic says the meek shall, quote, the meek shall inherit the earth, not, quote, the pussified defenseless fuck shall inherit the earth. Right. Meek does not mean non-violent. Jacob Stevens says another recent Naval tweet, the right to vote does not give you power. Power gives you the right to vote. Ooh, that's a banger. Naval's good at those. If I run the poll again, it'll be a replicable result. Right. That's true. Okay, so Molson Hart here on Twitter says AI is going to completely change human behavior. If I can generate a picture of me with any celebrity, will people still ask for selfies? Why will people write blog posts only to have LLMs suck up that knowledge and give no deal flow? Call to authenticate this wire may become FaceTime to authenticate this wire. A lot of people think of AI as a single move, but in reality, humanity has a move and response, and then AI can respond. For example, people may come to guard their faces, voices, what they write from learning models, making them much worse. It's a dynamic situation, and maybe there's more money to be made in non-AI startups, but actually companies help people solve these problems that don't use AI. I supposed to be, but actual companies help people. It's a dynamic situation, and maybe there is more money to be made in non-AI startups, but actually companies help people solve these problems that don't use AI. I think I get the idea of what he's saying, but it could be, he kind of butchered the paragraph. Proof of Face is already replacing dating apps with run clubs in New York City. This guy says, so hard to predict where these trends are going. I can see every example going the other way. Lab-grown diamonds still sell for a big discount to real. People value authenticity even if it's literally identical. Blog posts still serve as a scaling point for communities to form around, but maybe the AIs will write them instead. Why do you assume we'll be able to fake voices but not video? Seems like both coming soon. He says, because it's obviously harder. And I think it's like faking videos is going to be trivially easy very soon. But the important thing that he's observing here is that a lot of people, when they talk about this, they assume this sort of static state that I think is part of the latent end of history liberal mind that we've all been bred with. We still got to pick it out, and it's tough to see just how deep its tentacles go. Or its tendrils, I should say. But it's not like, oh, AI is there's going to be how humans are now, and then AI shows up, and we take how humans are now, we add AI to that, and then we place the last period and close the book. Like that's not how any of this works. AI is going to introduce a new domain, a new characteristics to the domain, new terrain, and humans are going to respond to it. Humans are going to change their behavior. And we've already seen what happens with these large language models when they begin training on large language model generated content. The model breaks down. Now, I'm sure that's not going to persist forever. There's going to be some new adaptation that makes that pushes that time horizon out further or something like that. But then you're going to have human beings responding to them. And if they get creeped out and they don't like what the AI thing is doing, then they're going to withdraw from it and not provide it as much human-generated content, which is going to change its outputs. And then when those outputs get changed, human beings are going to react to those and make it change its outputs again. This is going to be a continual thing happening. Just the same as the introduction of any other major technology. Human beings are not like a static state that just has one single setting and you introduce some sort of variable and it just borks everything. The human species is remarkably resilient. It's almost as if we're the center of the universe. So, from the closed source side of the AI debate, which just so happens to line up with the most insufferable aspects of the regime, we have this creature here who's very upset about Grok 2.0 that has just been released. It says, oh my God, Grok has absolutely no filters for its image generation. This is one of the most reckless and irresponsible AI implementations I've ever seen. So you've got Pikachu and Ronald McDonald as a mass shooter, and Trump holding a gun in the cockpit of a plane with the Twin Towers on fire behind it. Mike Solana from Pirate Wire says, wait a minute, holy shit, are Pikachu and Goofy real? Are they criminals? Did that cartoon Trump do 9/11? OMG, you guys, I just had no idea. And so I long posted. I said, this is exactly how to treat these people. Mock them, belittle them, treat them with contempt. They dramatically imagine themselves to be unfashionable outcasts and so feel justified in berating entire nation states into accommodating their delusions. So make them actually experience being a pariah. This goes back to the theater kids. Nobody cared about them, but they imagined that they were abused and put upon by everyone else. So now they have to exact their revenge for this imagined slighting that they received. The overwhelming majority of people simply acquiesce to avoid being targeted and spit upon by them. And the evil micro-minority weaponize that interactional state for their own agendas. And this isn't a particular micro-minority. This is a replicating phenomenon throughout the human species. There's always going to be one minority that imposes itself on the other on the majority. The majority acquiesce to that minority, and then there's going to be a micro minority that are like, "Hey, here's an opportunity. We are going to wield and weaponize this minority against the majority because then we can control all of them." And there's all sorts of different manifestations of this. And each of those little manifestations tends to, because they're acting in a particular way, they're aligned to a particular frequency, they can, in a decentralized way, act coordinatedly with each other, even if they're not explicitly, openly aligned. The people who want to rule the world will often work together with the other people who want to rule the world. Breaking that cycle will begin with people like E Squared being rendered so socially marginalized that they're forced to evolve beyond adolescence. It shouldn't be hard. They're a sincerely contemptible class to virtually everyone who interacts with them in any context. Too few have had the balls to stick a finger in their eye. But that's changing. The powerful micro-minority that's been backing them is losing its ability to spin the necessary narrative to maintain the shell game and can soon be forced to give it up and pivot away. Each argument against this point, this is the most important part of this. Each argument against this point is a de facto defense of their social status and this entire artifice, and accordingly adds another day to their tenure. So if you want to argue against this reality and say, oh no, actually they're more powerful than you think, or no, they're actually, they've got more influence than you're giving them credit for. No, actually any of those things whether you intend to or not, are a de facto defense of that state of things. Because by definition, this state of things is unpopular people managing to LARP as popular because they're so belligerent and abhorrent that people just acquiesce to them. So they're pretending to be popular and having the veneer of being popular while nobody likes them, while they're extremely unpopular. The way to change this dynamic is to treat them like they're unpopular. Because the more people who treat them like they're unpopular, the more unpopular they will become. So if you argue with that and say, oh, no, it's not, you can't do that. They control too many things. There's too many powerful people behind them supporting them. If you black pill about it, all you're doing is making the case that they're not as unpopular as you think. You're saying, no, they actually are popular. They're not unpopular people pretending to be popular and bludgeoning people into treating them as popular. They're actually popular. Do you see how this is much worse even than just joining them? You're giving a justification for why this dynamic should exist. So people like Mike Solana are a great boon to us because they spend time around this class of people. They know them intimately well. They've got absolute contempt for them, and they're recognizing the open space now to move into and populate. There's a lot of territory that we can colonize. And all we have to do is just treat these people with the contempt that they deserve. Publicly. Dunk on them. Massively humiliate them. And we've got more and more powerful people who are, I hate the phrase waking up to, but they're waking up to that reality. Speaking of Grok 2, I asked it I said, what is the ideology of me, my Twitter handle? And this is the answer. The ideology of @RealKingPilled, you say? Well, if we're diving into the digital psyche of this X character, we're looking at a cocktail of ideas that's as mixed as a drink at a galactic cantina. Here's the lowdown, or as close as we can get without a direct line to their thought process. Libertarian opportunism with a dash of theocracy. From the posts on X, it seems @RealKingPilled might be what you could call a libertarian theocrat. Someone who loves the idea of freedom, but only if it's under the banner of a very specific kind of moral or religious framework. Imagine if the Founding Fathers decided to mix the Constitution with a Bible study session. It's very boomer. Patriotic socialism or nationalist populism? There's a hint of what some might call patriotic socialism, or perhaps a form of nationalist populism where the love for country is so strong it's almost like they want to date it. But as noted, this can sometimes veer into territory where the lines between socialism and nationalism blur, creating a political Venn diagram that looks like a Rorschach test. This is probably the most fascinating part of it. It's very, very interesting how it's making a patriotic socialism, by the way, is a very interesting phrase. It's making this observation, and it has the but. Why is there a but here? But this can sometimes veer into territory where the lines between socialism and nationalism blur. What's wrong with socialism and nationalism blurring? But it's not making it's kind of giving an indication that it's like, I don't think that's good, because it has the but. Creating a political Venn diagram that looks like a Rorschach test. What a fascinating observation. Anti-establishment with a twist. They're not your typical right-winger nor a lefty, but rather an opportunist who's against the establishment, whatever that might mean on any given day. This could be seen as a critique of power structures, but with a twist of I'll do it my way, which might involve a mix of traditional values and a rejection of modern societal norms. The mandate of heaven comment. This one's a doozy. Mentioning the mandate of heaven suggests a belief in divine right or destiny, but applied in a modern context. It's like saying, I'm the chosen one, but for what exactly? That's still up for debate. A bit of everything. If you blend these ingredients, you get a figure who might advocate for a society where personal freedoms are celebrated, but within a framework that's heavily influenced by traditional or religious values, with a dash of anti-establishment flair. It's like they're trying to bake a cake with ingredients from every aisle of the ideological supermarket. So, at Real Kingpill's ideology, it's a bit like if you took a libertarian, a nationalist, a theocrat, and a critic of the establishment, put them in a blender and hit puree. The result is something uniquely, well, let's call it king-pilled. A concoction that might leave you wondering if you're at a political rally or a philosophical debate club. I think I just got roasted. Like, I think that last paragraph there was really kind of roasting me. Because honestly, that hit a little too close to home. This is pretty wild. Huh. It's kind of funny seeing the things that it's drawing from. So, did I retweet this? Let me see if that's what it says 4 retweets. Huh. This is very interesting. So it provides some sources. Let me share my screen again. It provides some sources down here for like the tweets that it's drawing from. But this one here is Jake Shields talking about Tim Pool being a joke of a man with no principles. And someone replied and said, he's not right-wing, never has been. He's a libertarian opportunist. It says there was 4 retweets on it, but when I look for them, it only shows 3. I don't know if I retweeted that or not. But, so it's interesting that somehow it's associated this with my account. Maybe I liked it. I'm not sure. So you could see how it's kind of how it's putting together the data. So yeah, this has nothing to do with me either. Patriotic socialist. So that's where it got the patriotic socialist term. This has nothing to do with me. I don't recognize any of these things here. Yeah, this has nothing to do with me. So somehow it drew from I don't know how it associated these things to me. It drew them somehow, but then it put together a very close to accurate description of me politically and ideologically. I'd quibble with some aspects of it, but yeah, this is pretty wild. And you can get access to, I think I saw someone that compared all the different image generation things. We just saw those images that were on the last story there. You can access this, I think, if you pay for Twitter at all now. I think it's $8 a month and you get access to Grok. So which would be the cheapest image generation AI service that's out there right now that I'm aware of. I am very optimistic about the future of X. Let me catch up on some of your comments here. Politically Catholic and Javier Oliva going back and forth. The sort of institution I'm thinking of is akin to Julius Caesar having his own private army that swore its allegiance to him personally, not to the Roman Senate. Ditto the vassal lords in feudalism trading their military forces to their king in exchange for land rights. It's going to be... I feel like Elon already has to have tremendous personal security, and I'll be curious to know when he actually gets involved. And I feel like he's got to create a company, like a personal security company, or buy one or something at some point, and recruit these people. Maybe that would be too formal, and that would increase the attack vector for him. But I imagine that the Gundo guys would be more than happy to provide him with all the technology in the world that he would need to protect himself. And we need to make sure he and Eric Prince get on the same page together if they aren't already. Politically Catholic, the feudalism model is very explicitly based on the use of force giving you rights. Somehow we have to figure out how to port a modern version of that feudal system of personal militaries to the present. This would be a very interesting conversation to have, because I think I think it's inevitable. I think it's inevitably rising, and there's actually a ton of different interesting ways that you could do something like this. We're very much in a political realignment. To go back to that Balaji conversation, he's written the network state. He sees himself as a post-nationalist, and we're going to see, and we've talked about this on the show before, that we're going to see a corresponding great centralization of some things and great decentralization of other things. So you're going to get localism paired with like universalism. Not globalism. There's going to be like a universalism paired with a localism, and there's going to be a tension there that is the in between actors are going to kind of disappear. We're going to lose the middle class of the governing bodies. So you're going to have the universal global bodies and local bodies. And many of those local bodies will form into tight-knit coalitions that will function as a larger body, but will still retain, because of different types of technology, still going to retain the differentiations within them. And this is you could like, it'd be really interesting to create a visualization of this somehow, showing like the morphing, like the morphology of human collective social arrangements throughout time. And you would see there's a pattern in the way that these things happen. It's almost like it's breathing, where you get the rapid expansion of, expansion of centralization, and then you get decentralization. You could think of it as the other way around as well. The expansion of decentralization and then centralization, and expansive of, and then both of these phenomena are happening at the same time on different levels of scale. So the local levels are centralizing while the global levels are decentralizing. And then fractally, the same thing is happening. This is, I'm sure that you would see this, you could trace this all the way back as long as humans have been around. And there's probably, understanding the as above, so below thing, there's probably this you could use this to inform the study of, say, cosmic bodies, and also the study of microcosmic bodies. You're going to see the same phenomena all over the place. Fractals. Jacob Stevens says, yeah, I've seen Grok absolutely nail at least 4 people, and I think you broke its mold, which is not surprising. Yeah. One of the things that it did, well, first of all, I had it analyze my personality. Let me see if I still have that. Because I know there's some of you in here who would find this interesting. One of the questions I asked it yesterday was to describe my personality. Was that the one? Let's see here. Give me just a second. I saw Academic Agent had posted something about this, so I wanted to see what it would do for me. Okay, here it is. So I said to describe my personality. And it said, based on the information available from posts on X and general personality trait descriptions that might align with the content shared by @RealKingPilled, here's a speculative overview of his personality. Analytical and observant. @RealKingPilled appears to be someone who closely observes and analyzes public figures, media, and events, often looking beyond the surface to interpret underlying motives or changes in behavior. This trait could align with personality types that value intuition and thinking over feeling, like those with ENTJ characteristics, where strategic thinking and long-term planning are prominent. Critical and skeptical. There's a strong sense of skepticism toward mainstream narratives or changes in public figures' behavior. That could suggest a personality that questions authority and conventional wisdom, often looking for deeper truths or hidden agendas. This aligns with traits of individuals who might score lower on agreeableness but high on openness to experience, questioning the status quo. I think I was, if I remember right, I think I was pretty middle of the road on agreeableness, but I'm extremely high on openness to experience, like 98th percentile or something like that. Insightful and philosophical. The mention of spiritual changes or deep philosophical insights, like referencing Jim Carrey's views on suffering and salvation, indicates an interest in existential or philosophical discussions. This might suggest a personality that contemplates life's deeper meanings, possibly aligned with aspects of introversion or a thoughtful, reflective nature. Bold and direct. The language used in posts, like calling out perceived weaknesses or changes in public figures, suggests a personality that's not afraid to voice controversial opinions or make bold statements. This could be indicative of high extroversion or at least a confidence in one's own judgments, typical of ENTJ or similar assertive personality types. Engaged with cultural and political shifts. @RealKingPilled seems highly engaged with political and cultural events, often commenting on them with a mix of surprise, analysis, and sometimes humor. I appreciate that. Thank you for recognizing the humor. This engagement might point towards a personality that thrives on understanding and navigating complex social dynamics, which could be seen in both ENTJ and ISFJ types, but for different reasons. Leadership and strategic planning for ENTJ, understanding and supporting others for ISFJ. And then possible idealism or disillusionment. I'm getting roasted again. There is an undercurrent of either idealism or disillusionment with how things are versus how they should be, especially in comments about public figures or societal changes. This could reflect a personality that holds strong ideals about leadership, integrity, or societal norms, which might be typical of those with strong moral convictions or a sense of justice. Given these points, if we were to map RealKingPilled onto the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator or similar personality frameworks, ENTJ traits might be prominent due to the strategic analysis, leadership qualities, and directness in communication, though this might be more about how he presents himself on X rather than his full personality. Very interesting qualification there. Oh, come on. I hate it when it does this. ISFJ traits could also be considered if we think about his engagement with personal transformation, understanding of others' motivations, and perhaps a quieter, more reflective side not as visible in public posts. However, without direct interaction or more personal insights, this remains speculative. Rook Kingpill's personality, as reflected through X posts, shows a complex mix of traits, possibly leaning towards an analytical, critical thinker with a keen interest in societal and cultural shifts, but with enough depth to engage with philosophical or spiritual concepts. I mean, that's kind of creepy to read. Like how I don't know, insightful it is. The way it's able to draw from these different things and distill stuff like that, because very much of that was very closely identified with me, for better or for worse. But I did think it was interesting that it picked up on the very high openness to experience. So, yeah, these Grok seems to be easily of the commercially available things. It's easily the best large language model that I've played around with. I haven't played around with Gab, and it seems like it's very good as well. I like the image generation with it, but yeah, this is Courtney YZZ says, or Courtney ZZ7 says Matt and VC responding to this. We may have to do some some conversation about the Jungian cognitive function stuff. So you know how millionaires use horoscopes and billionaires use astrology. The corollary or parallel to that would be that the millionaires use Myers-Briggs and the billionaires use Jungian cognitive functions. There is tremendous insight within those, but you have to really, really want it. And there's a big barrier to entry because a lot of people are predisposed to think it's gay and it's fake and gay. MBTI is very much fake and gay, but the Jungian cognitive functions are very, very real. Jacob Stevens says, I can attest to that. I scored 99 on the 538 Big Five personality test in openness and was super proud till Matt scored 100. Yeah. Okay. Let's get to the next story here. Sweden. Interesting to see this policy coming out of Sweden. From Remix News and Views, it says, Sweden has announced plans for a voluntary remigration scheme for migrants who have obtained Swedish citizenship but failed to integrate into Western society. Obtained Swedish citizenship but failed to integrate into Western society. This is a very interesting category of people. The Ministry of Justice is reviewing a proposal that would see even naturalized migrants paid a lump sum to leave Sweden and return to their homeland. Little Bill-to-Caesar happening here. Quoting, for those who have not entered Swedish society, remigration can be a way to create a better life for themselves, said Sweden's Migration Minister Maria Stinnergaard. This is one of several ways we achieve sustainable immigration that strengthens integration and reduces exclusion, she added. And Reich Nationalist said, people complain that Western nations shouldn't pay for remigration, but payments are likely to be far less than the lifetime cost of migrants to the taxpayer. This is a great start, and we shouldn't be pessimistic. Who would have predicted Sweden would do this? Shout out to the Swedes, my ancestors, my people. They're laying the path before us. This is a very big white pill. Creating a precedent like this means it begins the process of normalizing this sort of conversation and pairing that, regardless of the actual implementation of it. The fact that this idea is being put out there into the ether to now be discussed and tossed about means that energy can start generating behind it. This would be a fantastic way to solve the problem. You can do something like this along with more draconian measures. Fining companies for you could use the fines for the companies to pay for sending the people back, fining them for employing illegal immigrants. Just make it intolerable for illegal immigrants to be here and just make them self-deport. And then for the ones that it's less justified to be draconian with, you incentivize them. You pay them to go away. It's kind of similar to Yarvin's idea of the golden parachutes for the regime apparatchiks. you're going to go live in Cancun. You're going to get a great pension. And if we ever hear you talking about politics or getting involved in lobbying or anything like that, then you're going to prison for life. That is the way to do it. All right, down to the last several stories here. Do me a favor and hit the like button. We got 104 watching right now, 35 likes. Let's get it up to 60. Can we get it up to 60 before the end of the show? Couple things on abortion here. This video is very, very good. And then we got an ad that was put together, a pro-life ad that I think is well produced as well.
Would kill God if he could, but he can't. So he kills babies because he knows it wounds the heart of the Father and causes chaos on the earth. You see, abortion is actually the sacrament of Satan. Because abortion says you must die so I can live. But Christ says, no, I must die so you can live. And chooses to enter human history in a uterus of all locations to redeem mankind from their sins. This is why Peter Kraft, the Catholic philosopher, who's still alive today, spoke more prophetically on the issue of abortion than any Protestant I've ever heard. And he said, don't you know, church, abortion is the demonic parody of the Eucharist. That's why it uses the same holy words. This is my body. Would kill.
That hit hard the first time I listened to this yesterday. This is my body. Are you ever going to, whenever you hear my body, my choice for the rest of all time, are you ever going to,
oh God, if he could.
Are you ever going to think of it the same? Hold on. I need to, I'm trapped in a group chat that is going crazy and I need to mute it. Can you guys hear those notifications when they're coming in? When I'm sharing the screen? Because I think that you probably are. I really hope you aren't, because sometimes I get stuck in these group chats and, okay, no, not hearing it. Good. But I don't want to hear them. Okay, other abortion video here. Share this tab.
This child was almost born into poverty, but we killed her in the nick of time. She's way better off dead. Just saying. This kid had a genetic defect. This one had Down syndrome. Yeah. Ooh. This one was missing a toe. That's just weird. You're welcome, baby. Saved you from a lifetime of hardship. No one has ever risen above their circumstances. This one had a single mom. This one was conceived in rape. No, sorry. It was this one. Or maybe it was this one. I can't really tell. They all look the same. I wouldn't want to see anyone born into a less than perfect life. That's just not humane. We kill them because we care. Aw, she's sucking her thumb.
Now, the problem with something like this is that it's very difficult to get the distribution on it, to actually get it in front of someone who it's going to make a difference to. So it mostly just winds up being preaching to the choir. But sometimes the choir needs to be preached to. Okay. Now this is where it starts getting fun. So, I mean, hopefully it's been fun. But Mark Cuban is very upset. Mark Cuban and Jon Stewart slam X and Elon Musk, accusing Musk of manipulating the algorithm to push his preferred narratives to influence the election.
Right? Elon, in being one of those powerful people, he's trying to be the most influential man in the world. It sounds like a commercial, but literally that's what Twitter has given him.
I've got to say, I think he might be that. I don't even think he's trying to be. When you talk about somebody who is setting up satellite links for war zones and also controlling discourse in the most important media platform. I would think he is the most powerful.
Because Twitter is in almost every country, right? And so Twitter gives him the ability to connect to the prime minister, the head of every country in the world.
That's right.
And that person, whoever's in charge of that country, has an interest in what happens on Twitter. And what happens on Twitter, because of the control of the algorithms being the biggest user, is all dependent on Elon Musk. He literally, wherever his thumb wants to go, he gets to push as hard.
And he
as
certainly,
he
he's transparent about where he wants things to go. I think he's very clear that civil war is inevitable, and that white people are under the gun.
Concerning.
Right. It's he'll, it'll be like civil war is inevitable, and then he'll write underneath there,
By the way, this here is Mark Chabanisky, and this is John Leibowitz. Just in case you, for some reason they go by Mark Cuban and John Stewart, but Mark Chabanisky and John Leibowitz.
Kind of an understatement on there, but I can't decide whether or not it's better to know exactly where he stands and know where he's going to be put the thumb on, because he's clearly a very bright guy,
for sure.
And he has a media empire that has the largest reach and most influence of anything on the face of the earth, and there's no question he's going to leverage it in this election. No question.
But the crazy part is he has more impact globally than he does domestically, in my opinion, right?
Kind of wild that we never heard these guys talking about the ability for those who control social media platforms to influence elections. This is the first time we've ever heard them concerned about that. Isn't that strange?
Because when you go on X, you see a preponderance of right-leaning people. You don't see a lot.
They're all over my For You. I've never clicked on any of these things.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's the way algorithms work, right?
What?
Yes.
They do the opposite of what I want?
Yes. When somebody tells them, when you write an algorithm, I haven't written a lot, it's been a while, but when you write one, you get to set the parameters of what you want to see happen. And he certainly has done that to the things he likes. But it's different in other platforms. And the good news is, 20% of adults in the United States are on Twitter. So, there's 80% who aren't there.
But isn't this a certain amount of tech bro malpractice that there is this incredible need in the marketplace of something that is slightly less biased or toxic when it comes to there, and they came out with Threads, and you're on it for 2 seconds, and you're like, I think I need an app.
No, I like Threads. Threads is getting better. Try it. No,
yeah,
it's getting
here's
better.
something that doesn't sell online. No, it's getting better.
Okay, that was good. By the way, I saw some screenshots on Twitter today from someone who was on Threads and said, "Here's how things are going on Threads," and it was people talking on Threads about how the platform has been infiltrated by the far right, and that the entire platform just exists to prop up right-wing views in America, which was fantastic. Slosher says Cuban is inspirational because he proves even a retard can become a millionaire or a billionaire. Yeah, indeed. And Mark Metz says, I used to watch a lot of Shark Tank. Cuban was the best on that show until he became vegan. Then he progressively became gay. It was interesting to watch in real time. That is interesting. I've always, until the last, year or so, I've always liked Mark Cuban. Because I've been aware of him and following him for a long time because of Shark Tank and because of the NBA. So he's been on my radar for a very long time, and I've always liked him and wanted to like him. But he's just become, look at him. The dude looks like an old lesbian now.
And there's no question. He's Civil War.
This is really is a cautionary tale about veganism. He just looks like a pudgy, middle-aged lesbian. So now the response here from a couple of our guys. Elon's response. Exactly. Mark Cuban is a giant poop emoji in human form. Kate said that he was trying so hard not to insult Elon, while Elon was not similarly inclined. Elon was like, guy's a piece of shit. But the best part of this here is Cuban is complaining about the algorithm. And Elon says that was hilarious. Unlike the other platforms, our algorithm is open source. And if you interact and argue with, quote, right-wing accounts, which Cuban does a lot, the algorithm will assume that's what you want to do and give you more of it. LMAO. This is exactly what I was talking about yesterday on the show. It's perfect timing. The people who complain about the platform are universally just demonstrating their own behavior that they may not even be aware of. I don't know in this case if Cuban is genuinely just retarded and doesn't know that Twitter is open source now, or if he does know it, but he doesn't expect other people to know it, and so he's malevolent. I don't know which one it is. Either one seems equally plausible to me at this point. But there, is it on this? Yeah, here. Andrew Torba says, when Trump wins, they're going to come after Elon big time. Watch how they seethe in this clip. They'll blame the election and whatever comes after on him and attack X like they did to Facebook after 2016 and Gab and Parler after January 6th. I think that's exactly right. And it seems very clear that Elon and those associated with him are well aware of that reality. So I'm very curious to see what sort of steps they'll be taking to, I guess, protect themselves or counterpunch, as the case may be. Okay, next thing. There's a couple of points here that were missed, I think, not really talked about during the Trump-Elon conversation the other night. The first one, MJ Truth Ultra here says, did y'all hear that? Listen to this clip.
That have targeting parameters for the United States from other
100%.
countries.
And one of the things
And,
we're going to do is
it's-
we're going to build
yeah.
an Iron Dome over us. Israel has it. We're going to have the best Iron Dome in the world. We need it, and we're going to make it all in the United States. But we're going to have protection, because it just takes one maniac to start something. We're going to have protection, and we're going to have. Why shouldn't we have an Iron Dome? Israel has one. Some other places
Yeah.
have one that nobody even knows about, frankly. But Israel has it. We're going to have an Iron Dome. But with
Isn't that interesting?
Israel has one. Some other places
Yeah.
have one that nobody even knows about. Some other places
Yeah.
have one that nobody even knows about.
Some other places have one that nobody even knows about. What other places, apart from Israel, have an Iron Dome that nobody knows about? This guy, he says, where did your mind immediately go to? Mine went to somewhere cold. And that's a very interesting suggestion. I suspect that the other places that have one that nobody knows about are probably not continent or nation statewide. I think they're probably citywide, and there's a couple of cities that I think of. Perhaps the Vatican, perhaps the city of London. Those would be interesting. I wonder if there are or I wonder if the places are in the United States. Are there any other suggestions you have? Any other places that you think they might be? Andrew says Taiwan does. There's another interesting one. Are you saying they do for sure? Guam, maybe Guam. Yeah, Antarctica, South Korea. I'd be surprised if South Korea does. I don't think whatever it was. Trump knew that he wasn't supposed to say where it is, because he alluded to it. This is one of the things I love about him, is that he is willing to drop some of these little breadcrumbs for us. Andrew says we sold Taiwan that level of missile defenses a few years ago. Singapore, yeah. Some of these, it makes me think that if he's the fact that he said that Mar-a-Lago, that'd be an interesting thought. The fact that he wasn't willing to say outright where it is very curious to me. Because like Andrew here, he's saying Taiwan, that is he's like well known, or at least he's aware of it. But it seems to be something that is not necessarily something you would be able to conclude from publicly available knowledge, the way that he said it. It's very interesting. I wonder what he's referring to. Another thing that was missed. Not missed. I saw some people talking about it, but the fact that it was not a big story or one of the big takeaways shows just how insane the time we live in is, because there are so many big stories. I said a couple days ago, we got a sign of the absolutely fantastic and wonderful world we live in that I think has gone underappreciated. which fact is itself still further evidence of how tremendous this age is because so much other insane shit is happening. The richest man on Earth, a major automotive mogul who controls the most sophisticated space program in the world, massive global satellite infrastructure, and the world's town square, revealed in a conversation with another epochal billionaire, who, incidentally, is the POTUS favorite and whose banning from said town square was the impetus for its acquisition. He revealed that the model naming convention he used for his major automotive brand spelled sexy. So Tesla, you have the Model S, the Model 3, the Model X, and the Model Y. The two most powerful and iconic men in the world giggled on an internet call together about one of them baking a shitpost into the names of his greater than $600 billion, 140,000 employee company. And it barely even made a blip on the public conversation. It's a profound understatement to say that we live in interesting times. Like, this would have been like a story of the year a decade ago. Everyone would have been talking about this for a long time if they learned that that some billionaire had made sexy out of the names of the models of his products. And we've got a billionaire, we've got the wealthiest, most powerful man in the world, who is most influential man, who actually decides like this is what he wants to do, and he builds this electric car company, and they're having very serious conversations about production lines and all this sort of stuff. He's like, oh, by the way, the nomenclature that we're going to use, the naming convention we're going to use for the models is going to spell sexy. And then he tells Trump, and they sit there and giggle about it. All right. Let's do this one first. So we got a new hit piece on JD Vance. And this one is this is the sort of clip that makes it impossible for me to dislike or distrust JD Vance. And you'll see why. This is from Heartland Signal, which is covering politics and policy from the Midwest. Newsroom for WCPT 820. Now, where is WCPT? Okay, Chicago Progressive Talk. Okay, that fits. It's interesting they call it Heartland Signal. Look at their branding. They've got this. It looks like they're calling it Heartland Signal. They're from the Midwest. They're very. Their branding makes it look like they're just kind of down home and everything, but they're from Chicago, and it's whatever that was, Chicago Progressive Talk or whatever. And then you see the critique that they're pulling out here, and how much of a this is just. These people are just scum, absolute disingenuous, degenerate scum. Listen to this.
And you can sort of see the effect it has on him to be around them. Like, they spoil him. There's sort of all the classic stuff that grandparents do to grandchildren. But it makes him a much better human being to have exposure to his grandparents.
Well, I don't know.
And the evidence on this, by the way, is like super clear.
That's the whole purpose of the postmenopausal female in theory. Did your in-laws, and particularly your mother-in-law, show up in some huge way?
She lived with us for a year.
Right.
So,
So I didn't know the answer to that.
Right. No,
because that's this weird unadvertised feature of marrying an Indian woman.
No, it's in some ways the most transgressive thing I've ever done against sort of the hyper neoliberal approach to work and family. My wife had this baby 7 weeks before she started the clerkship. It was still not sleeping any more than an hour and a half in a given interval. And her mom just took a sabbatical. She's a biology professor in California. Just took a sabbatical for a year and came and lived with us and took care of our kid for a year.
Okay,
and it was just one of these things where it's like, this is what you do.
So a biology professor, PhD,
yes,
drops what they're doing, to immediately tend to the needs of a new mother with her infant.
Painfully economically inefficient. Right?
Can I just propose?
Like why didn't she just keep her job, give us part of the wages to pay somebody else to do it, right? Because that is the thing that the hyper liberalized economics wants you to do. The economic logic of always prioritizing paid wage labor over other forms of contributing to a society is to me, it's actually a consequence of a sort of fundamental liberalism that is ultimately going to unwind and collapse upon itself.
I think we're at the end
I
of
think
it.
it's the abandonment of a sort of Aristotelian virtue politics for a hyper market oriented way of thinking about what's good and what's desirable. If people
An abandonment of Aristotelian virtue politics for a, what did he say?
Aristotelian virtue politics for a hyper market oriented way of thinking about what's good and what's desirable. If people
A hyper market oriented way of thinking about what's good and what's desirable, I think he said. This is the next VP of the United States.
people are paying for it and it contributes to GDP and it makes the economic consumption numbers rise, then it's good. And if it doesn't, it's bad. I think that entire sort of, to me, that's sort of the root of our political problem.
I don't understand how people can possibly be blackpilled about JD Vance as the VP pick. How are you people out of your minds? This is the best like if you could make someone in a lab from our to represent our positions, you could hardly get better than this. He's like the best person on a presidential ticket in, I don't know, at least a century. People are insane. Now, so this is the way it's framed. Notice who it was who made the comment about the whole purpose of the postmenopausal female. This is Eric Weinstein he's talking to. This is from April 2020 on the Portal podcast. This is right at the beginning of COVID. Kind of to align to fix your mental position there. In an interview from 2020, JD Vance agrees with a podcast host. Now, this is the first one. Agrees with a podcast host.
And you can sort of see the
my tweet about this is about Eric Weinstein. We'll get to it in just a sec. Who says having grandmothers help raise children is, quote, the whole purpose of the postmenopausal female. He also agrees when the host says grandparents helping raise children is a weird unadvertised feature of marrying an Indian woman. And so the whole story here, 12.7 million views, which is like, thank you. Yes, please. Please make your hit pieces out of JD Vance saying the most base shit. Proving that he is one of our guys. Please make all of your hit pieces about that. Amplify this as much as possible. But the entire basis of this hit piece is he agrees with someone else who said this. Not even he said this. Literally, both of these are he agrees with this. Nothing about what he himself said. Nobody listening to this is going to be like, what an insane, crazy person. He's talking about how he gets married, his wife is having a baby, and his mother-in-law quits her job and goes to spend a year taking care of the baby. And he contrasts it with the typical hyper-liberalized, market-oriented, GDP must always go up perspective of, just pay for someone else to come do it. No, he's talking about the necessity, the biological necessity of the extended family. It takes a village, you know. Yeah, Colin Rosh says, only after the boomers would this be even slightly controversial. And this is like I don't think, I saw a couple other quotes on this that I should have saved because they were good thoughts. Here we go. Bennett's Phylactery says, they're disgusted by anything that anchors humanity to the natural world because it implies we are specimens, examples of a type that can be compared to a standard. If humans are primates, then liberals are just desperately unhealthy and neurotic and sterile primates. Amy Therese says, neither of the comments were even made by JD Vance. However, by whole purpose, I assume the host was referring to evolutionary function, their purpose within the family system as it exists to further human reproduction. Why are liberals so desperate to be offended over nothing? There was a John Slaughter, Powerful Mutual, says this is a basic teaching of evolutionary psychology. But having focused heavily on evolutionary psychology during undergrad, I can tell you most people struggle to understand generalizations and will clutch their pearls at any suggestion of generalized behaviors. Spandrel says, yep, one of us. See, so here we got a woman. I like Mason. I generally like the stuff she tweets about. She says, JD has a gift for saying things that are obviously true in the least palatable way imaginable. You could tell she didn't actually listen to it. She didn't even read the tweet. There was one in particular that Dudley Newright, shout out to him. I should have saved it, and I can't remember exactly who it was that we're this close to libs agitating to make the teaching of evolution illegal. So the grandmother hypothesis is what this referred to, and there was a guy that, I can't remember who it was, but there was a guy who responded to it and referred to that. And it was a guy that was kind of not even super, I'm trying to remember his name. I've got his face in my mind, but I can't remember his name. He's not even he's kind of a bit of a lib. He's like an IDW lib kind of. And he was like, how is this controversial? And I can't find it. Anyways, so what's really funny to me about this is that Eric Weinstein's not going to be happy. I haven't looked this morning to see if he's responded to this yet, but there's a whole bunch of reasons why Eric Weinstein's going to absolutely have a cow about this. I said, looking forward to Eric Weinstein's forthcoming 4,000 character deconstruction of this tweet, because he's going to have an absolute cow when he sees it. There's a number of reasons why. Number one, and probably the first and foremost thing that he's not going to allude to directly, because it would make him sound like an egomaniac, but I kind of think he is an egomaniac, and I say that with great love and affection. Not being named anywhere in this story, even though his voice is being used, is going to absolutely grind his gears like nothing else. He is going to shit a brick about that. And what he's going to direct it at is the complete disingenuous, downright evil nature of trying to tag JD Vance, like, so desperately reaching for a hit piece that you use his picture on a story where he agrees with someone who said some stuff. And then the stuff isn't even controversial. So we're also probably going to get a nice screed about the actual biological basis of this, and Eric being so baffled as to why he can't get why the libs have just chosen to abandon science or something like that. Let me see if he's responded yet. Nope, still hasn't. I'm really looking forward to it. I want to see. I will eagerly read. I'm going to turn on notifications so I know when he tweets. How the hell am I not following him? There, I want to see when he responds to that, because I know he's going to, and I know it's going to be epic. I'll always have a soft spot for Eric Weinstein, even though I think he has made some very, very poor decisions and showed himself to be very, very lacking in character, let's say. I don't know how much of it I can say publicly, but he was given a decision to make, and he made a very bad decision, and he's living with the consequences of it. Okay, got a couple of tweets from a friend of the show, Stormy Waters here. He's a really good follow on Twitter. He says, that interview Trump did last night, referring to the Trump-Elon one, that interview Trump did last night told you exactly which power factions are backing and protecting him. Trump kept bringing up how he was going to build a mega Iron Dome for America. That's Star Wars 2.0. This is just saying he wants to start building ultra high-tech sci-fi shit again on the first day, so Silicon Valley. So each of these things here, as what Stormy's highlighting, is each of these things is indicating which faction he's signaling to, and which faction is going to be interested in this. So you can triangulate which factions are behind him and which factions are supporting him, and you can conclude a lot from that. So building a mega Iron Dome is not just about the Iron Dome itself. It's about everything that entails, which is ultra high-tech sci-fi shit. Silicon Valley is very interested in that. Shout out to the Gundo boys. And also missile defense and electronic warfare, which was whose priority again? Pentagon and Defense Corps. Trump said make USA a manufacturing superpower. Rapid onshoring of tech manufacturing was whose strategic initiative and beneficiary? Pentagon and Defense Corps. He said making USA world's largest energy producer. Texas oil money and Wall Street. He said plans on keeping the dollar the world reserve currency, i.e. world finance hegemon. Wall Street. There's more examples, but you get the idea. So if you're trying to figure out who all is behind Trump and who has a strong vested interest in Trump's election, these are the people to look to. Wall Street, Texas oil money, Pentagon and the Defense Corps, Silicon Valley. That's the coalition. Those are the most prominent members of the coalition, which is exactly what we've been saying here for a while now. Not, a lot of these organizations have had the Silicon Valley is not an organization, but you know what I mean. A lot of these people have had a pretty bad reputation that they've definitely done plenty to bring upon themselves, but they're also not monolithic institutions that are core parts of the most radicalized, insane, demonic aspects of the regime. Many of them are actually quite. They've been going along because they have to, but they haven't been happy about it, and they're jumping at the opportunity to no longer have to be a part of that. And immigration, as Nephilim brings up in the chat, immigration covers all of these. All of these things are implicated by immigration, and particularly because of the relationship to China. And homelessness. Homelessness also directly affects, because most of these people here, they live in the areas where homelessness is big business. Vivek Ramaswamy, Balaji said this, and Vivek is going to steal it, the homeless industrial complex. The homeless industrial complex is big business. So when Joe Lonsdale is going after them with Leonard Leo, that's part of this. Because this is how the NGOs fund themselves. They allocate money to themselves through schemes like the homeless industrial complex that they can turn around and use for street-level activism. All these different stories that are all coming out, all these various different vectors for power all beginning to align in the narrative all at the same time is not a coincidence. Another tweet from Stormy. So, got to give the context here first. Citibank staff punches peaceful climate activist in the face for taking video. He was taken to the hospital bleeding. At Citi keeps proving their violent business is rooted in violent people. This can't go on. So here's the planet over profit. So here's from our perspective, we look at Citi and we're like, yeah, those aren't our guys. That's the regime. And then you get the absolute shit lib who's like, Citi, violent business and violent people. This is the right wing. These are the right wingers who are taking over Threads. So watch this video. Watch this guy here. That was pretty slick. This guy's been in a few bar fights. Boop! I'm pretty sure you could hear his teeth cracking. So Lee Enfield on Twitter, shout out to Lee, says, I stand with the finance bros. As do I. And Stormy said, finance bros don't get the right-wing street cred they deserve. Entire professional ethos is pursuit of personal glory and insanely competitive. Speedballing tests plus HDH plus Coke to start the day. Snorting Viagra just to stare down enemies with raging hard-on power. Blind rage is the default mood. These are our guys. Shout out to the finance bros. The finance bros and the tech bros are pretty close to each other. Let me check the comments here real quick. Jacob Stevens says, isn't it interesting how this whole thing exposes the strained use of defense to include literal offensive technologies, measures, and contractors? Yes, indeed. He says, hardly anyone would object to modern domestic defense, and it doesn't intrinsically come with the moral dilemma of foreign blood. Right? And this is the alignment that's happening now, is America needs to keep existing. Shit's going to get shitty. And there's a lot of financial interest in maintaining America, and not just maintaining America as an institution, but maintaining America as a powerful global hegemon. The only way to do this, and it's becoming clearer and clearer to more and more people who are getting more and more financially invested in this outcome, is through massive reshoring of manufacturing, resecuring the border, securing the dollar status, navigating the debt crisis. All these different things are going to be absolutely essential for the United States to even exist anymore. So because these people who are not necessarily ideologically wedded to the idea of nationalism or localism or patriotism or anything like that, they're winding up aligned with them because they have no alternative. If they want to protect their own interests, they're going to have to be nationalistic and patriotic and localist. Those are going to be the only things that are going to make it survive, which by default puts them at complete loggerheads with the factions that are going out of their way to create these crises because they have a vested interest in destroying America. America exists specifically to be destroyed in their mind. These people are on a collision course, which by default means if you're an American who wants America to exist and you want to be wealthy and safe and prosperous and secure, these people are your people. Regardless of how you may personally feel about one another or where you may diverge from one another, you have one fundamental thing in common, and that is you have a strong vested interest in America continuing to exist. Here's a great tweet from friend of the show, Josh Ham. Shout out to Josh for pointing this out to me. He says, this might be a case of the woke being more correct. PayPal Mafia is trying to build, and that requires a meritocracy. Competence would destroy the current global hegemony of stupidity. So this guy, Dave Troy, is kind of directionally correct without understanding why or how, since he's a democracy defender. So this is very interesting. We're going to read through this thread and then through a piece that this Dave Troy guy wrote for the Washington Spectator about the PayPal Mafia. He says, Thursday thoughts. 1, Peter Thiel is trying to create a global currency and overpower governments. 2, he and Musk know they can't win elections because they're a tiny minority. 3, they believe they can use technology as an alternative to politics. 4, everyone on the laughable Crypto for Harris call last night is a fool and complicit. Democrats and the public in general need to get educated about what they're dealing with. First of all, I'm pretty active on social media, and this is the first that I've heard about a Crypto for Harris call. Their marketing is not doing well. 6, this effort is part of a historical anarcho-libertarian tax revolt minority that has captured the Trump and RFK networks and is working on capturing Harris, too. 7, there is no workable middle ground, no room for compromise. Give no comfort, no quarter, no oxygen, no fuel. Contact your representatives and let them know what's at stake. People are naive about this right now, but this is all anyone is going to be talking about in a few months if we let this fester and continue. Onward. So he's basically making all the same points that we've been making, but from the opposite perspective. He says, don't take my word for it. Listen to Thiel say it in his own words. This is a pretty old clip. And it's funny that what he's saying here is, he's not saying, this is just my perspective. He's literally just echoing, quoting Peter Thiel exactly without actually quoting him.
The initial founding vision was that we were going to use technology to change the whole world and basically overturn the monetary system of the world. We could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
Technology is an incredible alternative to politics. You know, this Balaji interview keeps coming up because this is one of the things that Balaji, actually, it might have been Balaji and Vivek that talked about this, but about using non-political means to achieve political outcomes by setting up the inside-outside dynamic, where you can operate outside of politics to force the hand of politicians, to force the hand of the political process. And so then this is his article here that we're going to read. I just want to catch up on some of the comments here regarding the last one of the Twinkie dude getting punched. Screwed Up Rebellion said, "Stop hitting yourself." It would have been funny if he'd have said that right when he punched him. Witt says, "Keep America a super state." Indeed. Duffhead says, "If they want to accomplish their goals, they'll have to become our guys." Which is, Witt says here, exactly, Duffhead, what Charles Haywood said. Yes, Charles Haywood said this. I think it was with, if I remember right, it was in his most recent conversation with Buck Johnson on the Counterflow podcast. He said all the debate over whether or not they're our guys is kind of missing the point that in order for them to affect their own survival, they will have no choice but to become our guys. They're being drawn by history into becoming our guys, whether they intend to be or whether they're consciously doing it or not. They're having to protect their own interests, which by default means they're protecting our interests. Like Andreessen Horowitz wanting to protect little tech. By the things that they'll need to do to protect little tech will, by default, protect us. So aligning with them just helps the more we can align with them and the more people can align with them and promote their interests, the more our interests will be promoted and protected. And this is where we could build patronage networks. Douglas Charles says the other Iron Dome is over Moscow, not the one in Idaho. Interesting. So we got another possibility. He also says the military-industrial complex wants bases all over the world. Trump wants an Iron Dome that would make most of those bases unnecessary. It's a fight over posture and priorities. That's a really good point. You can't, like, these... Having a globalized military presence completely flies in the face of the notion of having borders and having an actual land that you're required to protect. Eventually, the globalized aspect of it just renders the other one pointless. So anyone who wants borders, who wants to actually have America be a functional entity, is by default going to come into conflict with those who want a globalized presence. And especially as we go through a period of great crisis that is going to force every nation state level actor to retrench and protect their own boundaries. Because if they don't, then they're just going to the economic, the geopolitical, the demographic, the environmental, the geological, all these different forces are all driving us toward a reassertion of local boundaries. A restoration of local core strength in order to begin building outward again. So let's read this article from the Washington Spectator. From Dave Troy, written July 30, 2024. The Wide Angle, Peter Thiel and the American Apocalypse. Between the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, Joe Biden's withdrawal from the race, and the rapid coalescence around Kamala Harris as the presumptive Democratic nominee, everyone's rushing to update their political calculus. But there's one recurring thread that haunts us that people aren't yet talking about. The debt ceiling, which must be addressed once again by January 2nd, 2025. As I've reported in the Washington Spectator previously, any default on U.S. debt would be unprecedented, sparking a global catastrophe with unpredictable outcomes. How soon we forget. In 2021, Moody's estimated that default could mean the loss of at least 6 million jobs and the destruction of $15 trillion in wealth. The COVID bailout packages amounted to about $4 trillion by comparison. I think that probably understates it. We got lucky in 2021 when Congress passed a $2.5 trillion increase right before the Christmas break. That kicked the can down the road to January 19, 2023, when we hit the limit once again. Janet Yellen enacted, quote, extraordinary measures to stretch available cash until June 5. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden struck a deal which was passed just days before default, or X date. That deal, which really only registered with political and finance nerds, brought us until January of 2025. If sane people are elected to Congress and the presidency, that shouldn't be a problem. Just sort out some kind of deal, pass it, and live to fight another day. But these are not sane times. It's wise to plan for the worst, which unfortunately is quite a plausible eventuality. So the solution, this guy claims, is we need sane people elected to Congress to save us from the budget crisis. The sane people like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, they'll save us. You know, it's not a big deal. The way to present this massive explosion that just absolutely burns us all up and we all die and piss and shit, all you have to do to fix it is just get some kind of deal, pass it, you know, just kick the can down the road. Don't worry about it. And it's funny that the way he frames this here is Congress passed a $2.5 trillion increase right before the Christmas break, which was made us lucky. Wow, we're lucky we got that. And that kicked the can down the road. Typically saying kick the can down the road is like a euphemism for didn't solve the problem. And now he's saying what we need to do is kick the can down the road again. That'll solve the problem. J.D. Vance's selection as Trump's running mate suggests that Vance's benefactor, Peter Thiel, is running the show, reprising an aborted effort to run the show from 2016. He seems to have learned from his mistakes. Thiel's main hook into the first Trump administration was Steve Bannon, and their efforts were largely stymied by Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner and other advisors. Bannon was ultimately forced out and left the administration after the deadly white supremacist Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in August 2017. In The Contrarian, a 2021 biography of Thiel, author Max Chafkin describes Vance as an extension of Thiel, who was a primary funder of Vance's victorious 2022 race for Senate in Ohio. If Trump wins, Vance will be a heartbeat away from the presidency, and that should give everyone palpitations of their own. A new Congress will be sworn in on January 3, 2025, one day before we hit the debt ceiling. The Treasury Secretary, presumably Janet Yellen, will then again have to enact extraordinary measures to avoid default. That may buy us anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, depending on who is elected president and who is appointed Treasury Secretary. President Biden must try to prevail on Congress to put together another debt ceiling deal before the end of the year. How do these people live? Like, how does this guy tie his own shoes? He just set up here Joe Biden's withdrawal from the race. So, like, it's not like he's completely checked out from the world. The rapid coalescence around Kamala Harris as the presumptive Democratic nominee. And yet here, President Biden must try to prevail on Congress. Like, what President Biden? The dude who couldn't pick up a beach chair? If that doesn't happen, that task will fall to the next president. Depending on who is in control of the House and the Senate after the election, the current Congress may decline to act and wait for the next Congress to take this up, adding to the drama. And if Mike Johnson retains his status as Speaker of the House, it's possible the House will not introduce a bill at all. Or if they do, it might be coupled with draconian measures, like a return to pre-COVID budget levels. How draconian! A return to budget levels from 5 years ago, as the Cato Institute and others have proposed. Here's Joe Lonsdale interviewing Leonard Leo of the Federalist Society on his podcast, American Optimist. Episode 80, Leonard Leo knows how to win and how to save our country. The biggest concern, however, is that Thiel is coordinating with his old PayPal Mafia colleagues, including David Sachs, Elon Musk, and Joe Lonsdale. While Thiel runs Vance, Sachs is bundling contributions and running his own propaganda effort in support of the Republican campaign. Musk and Lonsdale have recently teamed up to create a super PAC in support of the Trump-Vance ticket, which has been buffeted almost daily by revelations of Vance's earlier denunciations of Trump and his own bizarre views of women and human sexuality. Man, if I didn't know better, I would think this guy was a graper. The Wall Street Journal reported that Musk might support that PAC to the tune of around $45 million per month. Musk has denied that specific claim since, but the American PAC, which is run by Lonsdale, appears to be created to support the PayPal Mafia worldview, which includes, and indeed depends on, the bankruptcy of the United States. See below. Another secretive network may have helped provide Vance with the necessary momentum to become a favorite for VP. You know, when Kamala picked Tim Walz, there was no secretive network that did that. When Kamala, when they rapidly coalesced around Kamala for the Democratic nominee, that was no secretive network. This is just the workings of democracy. This is just the people making their will known. When Vance is chosen for VP, it's because of a secretive network. The Rockbridge Network, founded in 2019 by Vance, Thiel, and Chris Buskirk, publisher of the pro-Trump publication American Greatness. A pro-Trump publication, oh my God! According to Puck News, the group's network has included Republican donors Harlan Crow, Rebecca Mercer, David Sachs, and other familiar names. According to Chafkin, Thiel believes that the 2008 financial crisis should have led to a depression. Indeed, it was the investment thesis of his firm, Clarium Capital, that this would happen. But low interest rates and other bailout measures kept Thiel's bet against the United States from working out. Now he's out for revenge. Can we zoom in on this? So, tweets from Elon, April 19, 2023. Given federal expenditures, as it is a matter of when, not if, we default. March 12, 2024. Overspending must stop or America will go bankrupt. This one is July 26, 2024. Retweeting Peter St. Onge. America is headed for bankruptcy, FYI. And then this one here, I can't see the date on it, but it's a headline that says interest payments on U.S. national debt will shatter $1.14 trillion this year, eating 76% of all income taxes collected. He said, America is going bankrupt, by the way. And then where are we with dollar value destruction, you might ask? And he says, we're right here. Musk has expressed similar views in connection to last year's debt ceiling standoff. In April 2023, he said, given federal expenditures, it is a matter of when, not if, we default. And he's taken up a similar line more recently. This week, Musk tweeted, America is going bankrupt, by the way, citing a story that claims interest debt is, quote, eating 76% of all income taxes collected. Huh. Seems like that would be a pretty easy claim to verify. Maybe if you're a journalist, you might go actually, when you're citing something, you might cite a thing and verify whether it's just a claim or if it's actually true. However one might feel about the national debt and the need to curb budget deficits, one thing is certain. A default will launch a global catastrophe from which recovery will be difficult or even impossible. And unfortunately, this seems to be their plan. And it is aligned with similar ideas expressed by Christian nationalists and Putin-aligned actors. Putin! Oh my God! James Scaminacci, a scholar of Christian nationalism, has warned about the North Pole strategy, a scheme dreamed up by Christian firebrand Gary North and the libertarian ideologue Ron Paul. Never did I expect to run into a Gary North reference. Their plan envisions taking control of the United States through bankruptcy, asserting that God's judgment, which is pro-revolution, will produce a cataclysmic collapse of the American political economic system. Close quote. In 2013, North predicted a, quote, great default on $205 trillion of unfunded liabilities. Sergei Glaziev, an economist leading the idea of a BRICS currency as an alternative to the US dollar, wrote a book in 2016 called The Last World War, The US to Move and Lose, describing much of the same scenario. He wrote, quote, the financial and information hegemony of the US is threatened by the ever-growing likelihood of collapse of the pyramid of debt obligations denominated in dollars. Glaziev was also very close to crank political theorist Lyndon LaRouche and his wife Helga Zepp LaRouche, who now runs LaRouche's organization, the Schiller Institute, which has published many papers along the same lines. The Schiller Institute was deeply involved in the Rage Against the War Machine rally in Washington, D.C. in February of 2023, has also promoted voluminous material about the noosphere concept, one basis of Putin's policy agenda. In May, Representative Thomas Massey introduced H.R. 8421, the Federal Reserve Abolition Act, which aims to, quote, abolish the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve Banks, close quote, and repeals the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, the law that created the Federal Reserve System. What would happen after that is unclear, but this bill, as designed, would end the current dollar system and introduce a new financial system rooted in a gold-backed dollar and cryptocurrencies. It should be obvious that this may have catastrophic consequences for individuals, potentially obliterating their life savings. While Donald Trump has tried to distance himself from Project 2025, the controversial policy package developed by the Heritage Foundation, J.D. Vance has become closely associated with the scheme. Kevin Roberts, like Leonard Leo, a member of the secretive extremist Catholic organization Opus Dei, and one of the principal architects of Project 2025, wrote a book called Dawn's Early Light, Burning Down Washington to Save America. That's a hell of a title, with J.D. Vance supplying the foreword. The title was subsequently changed to replace Burning Down Washington with Taking Back Washington to avoid the obvious and literally incendiary implications of the former. Vance wrote of Roberts' book, quote, we are now all realizing that it's time to circle the wagons and load the muskets. In the fights that lay ahead, these ideas are an essential weapon. End quote. Project 2025 also contains recommendations for terminating the Federal Reserve, echoing Representative Massey's H.R. 8421, specifically on page 694, quote, that the next administration should think about proposing legislation that would effectively abolish the Federal Reserve and replace it with free banking, whereby neither interest rates nor the supply of money would be controlled by government. Donald Trump, who in 2021 said Bitcoin was a scam against the dollar, is now an ardent advocate of Bitcoin and NFTs, non-fungible tokens, both of which have provided him with a significant financial boost. Trump is a headliner at the annual Bitcoin conference in Nashville, along with Putin apologists Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Russell Brand, and Edward Snowden. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a Putin apologist. CNBC recently reported that Trump has raised more than $4 million in Bitcoin and other digital assets since he began supporting cryptocurrencies. More than $4 million! These people are retarded. $4 million is a pittance. At that conference, Senator Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming, I don't know if it's Lummis or Loomis, another one that I've only ever read, I've never actually seen or heard, proposed establishing a, quote, strategic Bitcoin reserve, which she claims will create a brighter future for generations of Americans by diversifying into Bitcoin. Vance is also a major backer of cryptocurrencies and disclosed in a recent filing that he held between 100,000 and 250,000 in Bitcoin. Again, relatively very little. He has also gone on record in favor of devaluing the US dollar to boost exports. A former advisor to Thiel recently suggested to me that his worldview was, quote, largely self-referential, and that of a, quote, kid in high school who was picked on. This source went on to assert that Musk's America PAC amounted to the, quote, neuroatypical leading us into a business coup. Based. Autism is in control. Referencing the 1934 business plot. And given Vance's role as an extension of Thiel per Chafkin, this is cause for grave concern. Michael Anton, we're getting all the hits here, folks. Michael Anton, another character from the Thielverse, wrote an essay describing the 2016 election as a Flight 93 election, comparing Hillary Clinton to the 9/11 terrorists. Based. Anton, who is connected to the conservative Hillsdale College and is a senior fellow at the Claremont Institute, more recently has called for a Red Caesar, or a leader whose, quote, post-constitutional rule will restore the strength of his people, end quote, with Vance now seemingly cast in that role. And as the Supreme Court recently ruled, if he manages to become president, he will now have immunity for any official acts. This is the absolute epitome of Blue Anon. But the great thing about it is he's actually getting a lot of this stuff right. And it's good. Musk has made similar proclamations calling for an American Sulla, famous for being the first Roman general to march his army on Rome, seizing control by force. Retired Lieutenant General Michael T. Flynn seems ready to take up that role and has continued to call for various Black Swan events and has made repeated warnings about political assassinations, including of Donald Trump. Interesting. This article was written July 30th, and it seems like he left a sentence out right here. You know, he talks about political assassinations, including of Donald Trump, but then I think he must have deleted a sentence accidentally before he published it. We have seen how rapidly public opinion can now shift based on the interplay between traditional media, social media, and authority figures. The Silicon Valley bank run and the crisis of confidence in Joe Biden following his poor debate performance shared similarities. In early 2021, I circulated a memo privately in Washington, suggesting that Musk and Thiel were aiming to do the same thing to the US dollar. And now we see that plan coming to place, with Thiel, Musk, Russia, and other right-wing media planting seeds of doubt in the dollar. You know, the dollar would be just fine if they weren't planting seeds of doubt in it. Thiel ally Balaji Srinivasan, all of the hits, just published an article arguing that default is unavoidable. Notice that like every single one of these guys are saying, hey, this really bad thing's going to happen unless we do something about it. And he's like, how dare they? How dare they say a bad thing might happen? These crooks, these criminals, daring to suggest that something bad could happen. How dare they try to solve a problem? There's no problem. The only problem is them trying to solve a problem. Headline for the New York Times, Trump-Vance administration could herald new era for dollar. Both candidates on the Republican ticket have argued that the U.S. currency should be weaker to support American exports. A Harris victory is a necessary but insufficient condition to avoid a catastrophe. Yes, this global existential crisis of the U.S. dollar can only be averted if Kamala Harris is the president of the United States. These fucking retards. Biden must act now to provoke Congress to resolve the debt ceiling situation, ideally permanently. Oh, what's the permanent solution? There's some permanent solution that's just been sitting out there, and only Kamala Harris and Biden can access it by kicking the can down the road. This guy must have like some sort of an implant in his ear that reminds him to inhale and exhale regularly. That's the only way I can conclude that he's still alive. A prospective Harris administration must educate itself on the perils of gold standard revanchism and understand that cryptocurrencies are neither innovative nor neutral. Cryptocurrencies aren't innovative. Oh, I wonder why that is. This guy clearly is a cryptocurrency understander. And his awareness of it is something beyond, these guys I don't like it. They must understand that cryptocurrencies are neither innovative nor neutral, but rather instruments of warfare, which will be used by our adversaries to upend the world order. The system, as they say, is blinking red, and if there ever was a Flight 93 election, it's this one. May we both have the wisdom and capacity to intercept these threats before it's too late. Dave Troy is an investigative journalist focused on exposing threats to democracy. Based in Baltimore, his background is a technologist. Oh, he's a technologist! With an interest in studying online extremism affords him a unique perspective. The perspective of that of a retard is not all that unique. His work has appeared at MOMA in New York, and he is a fellow with New America Foundation's Future Frontlines. Dave writes regularly about information warfare, history, and politics. He is the host of the podcast Dave Troy Presents and speaks regularly at conferences on disinformation, extremism, and information warfare. Imagine getting to the point where you have to get this guy to come to your conference. Big takeaway, I would say, from this is you notice the tone of it all. These guys are inevitable. The only thing we can do now is try to react to them and try to overcome their almighty weight and power. Interestingly, he's doing the same thing that many people on the ostensible right wing do to their own enemies, where they project this massive inevitable power to them. But what this rings to me as is the regime is fully adopting a reactive posture and preparing to be the outer party and to function as the outer party and to obstruct. I think we're seeing a foretaste of the future. As Eric Winter says, I'd rather be reacted to than the other way around. Exactly. Now we must press the advantage. Drunk Plato says, one of my biggest white pills is that the new right is being drawn to Bitcoin while the progressive are being repelled. Indeed. Indeed. Alrighty, guys. Well, I appreciate you coming and hanging out. We got 111 watching and 53 likes. We need 7 more for the goal. We need to get to 60. In fact, now I'm going to raise the goal. We need to get to 70. There's 111 of you in here. We need 17 likes to get us to 70. Do me a favor and hit that like button on your way out. Join the King Pill Discord, kingpill.com. And I will be back here tomorrow for another episode of the Astrolabe. Go follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. Hope you guys have yourselves a great day. Remember, no fucking black pilling. There's so much to be positive and white pilled about. And life is good. Life is good, and we get to make it better. Will says, what dental work did you have done? I had a root canal done. On Monday, I'm going back for to have a crown put on. And then I got to get another root canal scheduled as well. So I'm going to continue as often as I can, bringing you guys a daily show. Hopefully it'll get back to a morning show here eventually. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with the Astrolabe. And I will catch you guys tomorrow.